when my son-in-law, looking at the blueprints of my own home, declared, "Face it, old man, your creation is obsolete. We're gutting this place, with or without you." I didn't scream. I simply nodded, went to my room, and began to pack. My daughter, Izzy, watched me with an icy disappointment, certain that I would, as usual, fold and submit. But this time, everything was different. A week later, I had 34 missed calls, and that was only the beginning of my meticulously crafted plan. They would regret every single one of their words. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The keys to my car were still warm in my pocket when I walked through the front door, carrying bags from the farmer's market, fresh bread, organic vegetables, and the expensive single malt scotch that Liam loved so much. The Saturday light, pouring through the panoramic windows I had designed to catch every ray of the setting sun, flooded the space with gold. Usually, this sight filled me with pride. But not today. The air was thick with a tension as dense as the morning fog over Puget Sound. Liam stood in the middle of the living room, arms outstretched like a conductor before an orchestra. Spread before him on my antique drafting table, a piece that had survived 3 architectural firms and 1,000 sleepless nights with me, were glossy architectural renderings. They were images of my house, but distorted, mutilated beyond recognition. My carefully considered lines, my thoughtfully designed spaces, the harmony of wood and stone, all replaced by cold concrete, glass, and a soulless minimalism that Liam called the language of the future. "Felix, great, you're just in time." His tone was patronizing, like a boss addressing a negligent subordinate. "Take a look. This is what a 21st century home should look like. Open concept, maximum functionality, minimum of this sentimental junk of yours." He waved a dismissive hand toward the cherrywood bookshelves I had built myself. My daughter, Isabella, my Izzy, stood beside him, her arm linked through his. She wore an ecstatic smile I hadn't seen since she used to tell me about her childhood dreams. Only now, the object of her adoration wasn't me, but this self-infatuated poser who believed a business school diploma gave him the right to judge my life's work. I slowly set the grocery bags on the floor. "Liam, this isn't just a house. It represents every vacation I skipped, every bonus I earned, every sleepless night. I designed it for your mother-in-law, for Martha. A piece of her soul is in these walls." "Oh, here we go with the stories," Liam sighed, rolling his eyes. "Martha's been gone for 5 years. Life moves on. We can't live in a memorial. We need a space for living, for entertaining, for success. I've already spoken to the contractors. They're coming on Monday for measurements." A chill seized my heart. Contractors. He had spoken to contractors about demolishing the walls of my home without saying a word to me. I looked at Izzy, searching for support. "Sweetheart, you know what this house means to me." She avoided my gaze. "Dad, Liam is right. We have to look to the future. His startup is about to take off, and we need a home to match. It's going to be amazing, you'll see." My startup, that phrase was his mantra. The startup into which I had poured nearly $100,000 of my retirement savings. The startup that, in 2 years, hadn't produced a single cent of profit but required constant investments in image. "This is my house, Liam." My voice was quiet but as firm as steel. "My name is on the deed. My signature is on every blueprint. No contractor will touch this house without my written permission." Liam smirked, stepping closer to me. He was taller and younger, and he used it to intimidate. "Details, Felix, formalities. We live here, we make it ours. Look, we can do this the easy way. You just give us your blessing, maybe even help with the technical side. Or," he paused, and that's when Izzy intervened. Her voice, once so gentle, became cold and sharp. "Dad, you need to decide. Either you support our vision and don't get in the way, or you can leave. We can't let your stubbornness stand in the way of our future." There it was, the ultimatum. Choose between my dignity and a roof over my head. I looked into my daughter's eyes and saw nothing but the reflection of her husband's ambition. The little girl for whom I had built sandcastles on the beach had grown up and was now helping another man tear down the castle I had built for her from stone and love. "All right," I said quietly. Liam smiled triumphantly, thinking I had broken. "Excellent. I knew you'd see reason. So, on Monday, I'll pack, I finished. The smile vanished from his face. Izzy gasped, her mouth falling open in astonishment. They had expected arguments, shouting, pleading. They had not expected quiet compliance. I turned and walked toward my bedroom, leaving them standing in the middle of the living room with their glossy pictures of a life that wasn't theirs. Behind me, I heard a confused whisper, "Dad, wait." But I was already walking down the hall, past the photos of Martha smiling, past the walls that remembered the laughter of my little girl. The suitcase I had taken to Italy to celebrate my first major award came down from the top of the closet with a dull thud. It was empty, just like my heart at that moment, but it was ready to hold what little remained of my life in this house. I packed my things with the methodical precision of an architect drafting a project specification. Every movement was measured and exact, as if I were cutting away the non-essential, leaving only the load-bearing structures. Underwear, socks, a few changes of shirts, a pair of trousers. Not everything, just the essentials. From the living room, the muffled drone of their voices reached me. Liam speaking quickly and assertively, Izzy responding more quietly, with notes of panic. They were trying to develop a counter-strategy, not understanding that the battle was already lost because I had refused to fight. My hands moved on autopilot. The sweaters Martha had knitted for me remained in the closet. The books on architectural history I had collected for 30 years remained on the shelves. I took only what defined me now, not the past, but the future. Into the side pocket of the suitcase went a small, silver-framed photo of Martha. Not the one on the mantelpiece, but a small, pocket-sized one from our honeymoon. Next to it, my blood pressure medication, reading glasses, and the thin leather-bound journal where I had tracked my personal finances for decades. That journal was my ledger, the chronicle of my life in numbers. When I wheeled the suitcase into the hallway, their conversation stopped. Liam was sitting in my Eames lounge chair, but his posture was tense, predatory. Izzy stood by the window, hugging herself as if she were cold in the warm house. They said nothing as a farewell. They just watched me walk to the door, as if I were a ghost from the past who had finally decided to leave them in peace. My old Volvo, reliable as a Swiss watch, started on the first try. I backed out of the driveway without looking in the rearview mirror. I didn't want to see their faces in the window. I didn't want to see the house that had suddenly become foreign to me. The drive to the Edgewater Hotel, located on the waterfront in downtown Seattle, took 40 minutes. 40 minutes for the memories to flood in. I drove past the University of Washington campus and remembered paying for Izzy's tuition, $50,000 a year for the private arts college she had insisted on. I had taken on extra projects, worked weekends, survived on 4 hours of sleep a night so my girl could have the best education. The wedding had cost $75,000. Liam's family, it turned out, was between projects, so I quietly covered all the expenses. The reception hall with a view of the bay, a live jazz band, a designer dress, anything for my princess. And then came this startup. $100,000 from the money I had set aside for a peaceful retirement, for the travels Martha and I had dreamed of. "Dad, this is a sure thing. We're going to change the world," Liam had said, his eyes shining. I hadn't believed him. I had believed in my daughter's happiness. The Edgewater wasn't the cheapest option, but its windows opened onto the water, and I needed that expanse to breathe. The room was small, but impeccably clean. A bed, a desk, 2 armchairs by the window. I set my suitcase down and sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the room's emptiness echo the void inside me. But this wasn't the poisoned emptiness of the house. It was a clean, clear emptiness, ready to be filled. I took out my laptop and the leather-bound journal. Connecting to the hotel's Wi-Fi, I logged into my online bank. Numbers glowed on the screen, account balances, investment portfolios, retirement funds. These weren't just numbers. They were years of my life, converted into financial security. Security that I had willingly offered up to be plundered. I opened my journal. On the last few pages, all the automatic payments and regular transfers were neatly listed. $2,500 a month to their joint account for household expenses. $800 for the lease on Liam's Tesla. $500 to Izzy's credit card, which she used only for emergencies. The emergencies, judging by the statements, included weekly spa visits and designer handbags. The mouse cursor blinked on the screen, awaiting my command. Tomorrow was Sunday. The bank, every joint, every line, every point of support. They wanted to rebuild my house. Well, I would deconstruct their lives. Sunday morning in Seattle was gray and rainy, but for me, it was the perfect backdrop. The weather mirrored my mood, calm, focused, and slightly melancholic. I ordered strong coffee to the room and laid out my tools on the desk, my laptop, my phone, and the journal, open to the page that mapped the financial life I had sponsored for so long. The first thing I did was open my banking app. The automatic transfer of $2,500 to their joint account. It was scheduled for the first of every month. I found it in the list of recurring transactions. The cancel button looked ridiculously simple. One click. The system asked for confirmation. Are you sure you want to cancel this monthly transfer? I clicked yes, without the slightest hesitation. The feeling was akin to removing an unnecessary support beam in a dilapidated structure you intend to demolish. Next was the Tesla lease. The payment went directly to Tesla's financing department from my account. I called the hotline. After a few minutes on hold with music that was supposed to be calming but was only irritating, a sleepy operator answered. Hello, Mr. Miller. How can I help you? I want to cancel the automatic payment for contract number 74B91 and remove my account as the primary payment source. I heard keyboard clicks on the other end. Sir, I see you've been paying on this contract for 2 years. May I ask the reason for the cancellation? The owner of the vehicle will now be assuming financial responsibility himself. I understand. The change will take effect immediately. The next payment will need to come from a new account. Should we notify the owner? Don't bother, I said. I think he'll notice when the bill arrives. Then came the credit cards. Izzy was an authorized user on my American Express Platinum card. I opened the app, found the Manage Users section, and clicked Remove. The system warned that the card in her name would be immediately deactivated. I confirmed. Then I did the same with the Visa card. The process took no more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes to cut off the financial flow they had taken for granted. By noon, I had finished with the main items. My phone was silent. They didn't know yet. They were probably enjoying a Sunday brunch somewhere trendy, discussing colors for the new walls, and choosing furniture they thought I would pay for. They didn't know that the foundation of their beautiful life had already cracked and would soon crumble to dust. The week passed for me in a haze of a new routine. I walked along the waterfront, sat for hours in coffee shops with a notebook, not sketching, but making lists. I visited my lawyer, an old friend named Arthur, and we updated my will. The house, upon my death, would no longer go to Isabella. It would be transferred to a new foundation we were establishing, the Martha Miller Foundation for Young Architects. Arthur looked at me over his glasses. Are you sure, Felix? She's your only child. She made her choice, Arthur. And I'm making mine. The missed calls started on Wednesday. First, one from Izzy. I didn't answer. An hour later, another. Then a text. Dad, my card isn't working. Must be some kind of glitch? Call me back. I read the message and deleted it. By Wednesday evening, there were 5 missed calls from her and 2 from Liam. On Thursday, their tactics changed. The voicemails became more insistent. Dad, what's going on? Izzy's voice trembled. The bank says I'm no longer a user on your card. You have to call them and fix it. This is some misunderstanding. Liam's message was devoid of any politeness. Felix, I don't know what games you're playing, but this isn't funny. I got a notification from Tesla that the payment didn't go through. You have 24 hours to fix this, or it's going to hit my credit score. Don't make me get angry. I listened to his threats with cold curiosity. His credit score. That was all he cared about. By Friday evening, my phone showed 34 missed calls. 22 from Izzy, 12 from Liam. Their messages had become a kaleidoscope of emotions, from bewilderment and anger to panic and the beginnings of desperation. Dad, please answer. We don't have money for groceries. The transfer didn't come. Felix, this is low. You can't just abandon us. We're family. I listened to each message, then methodically deleted it. I didn't feel any glee. I felt a veil being lifted. I saw them not as my daughter and her husband, but as 2 spoiled adults facing the consequences of their words for the first time. They thought I was an old, broken man they could push around. They didn't understand that an architect, before building something new, must thoroughly examine the old foundation and, if necessary, ruthlessly tear it down. On Saturday morning, Exactly 1 week after my departure, they found me. I was sitting in the hotel lobby with a cup of coffee and a fresh issue of Architectural Digest when I saw their Tesla, still theirs, for now, screech to a halt at the entrance. They got out of the car and strode purposefully toward the doors. Liam was in his usual uniform, designer jeans, an expensive hoodie, and the look of a man to whom the world owes everything. Izzy looked lost and exhausted, her face pale, without its usual makeup. I didn't hide. I set my magazine aside and waited calmly. They burst into the lobby like two tornadoes. Liam immediately went on the offensive. "There you are." His voice was too loud for the respectable hotel. "What do you think you're doing? Ignoring our calls, cutting off the cards. Is this some kind of revenge? Do you think this is mature?" A few guests turned to look at us shouting. I raised a hand, gesturing for him to be quiet. "Liam, don't make a scene. We can talk about this civilly." "Civilly?" He laughed, but it was an angry sound. "You're trying to ruin our lives, and you talk about civility? You've cut off all our accounts. We don't have a cent because of you." "Not because of me," I corrected him calmly. "It's because you don't have any of your own money. I've simply stopped giving you mine." Izzy stepped forward, her eyes full of tears. "Dad, please. We can talk this out." Liam was out of line. "We both were. But you can't do this to us. We're your family." "Family?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Family doesn't issue ultimatums in their own father's house. Family doesn't allow someone to humiliate the person who dedicated his life to them. You made your choice, Izzy. You told me to get out. I got out. What's the problem now?" "The problem is that you promised to always take care of us." Liam blurted out. "You offered to help with my business. You said you believed in me." "I believed in my daughter's happiness," I retorted. "And I didn't offer to help. I gave you $100,000 of my retirement savings. Money you spent on this car, expensive clothes, and endless business lunches. Where is your business, Liam? Where is a single client? Where is a single dollar of profit?" He faltered. He hadn't expected such a direct attack, such precise numbers. He was used to me silently writing checks. "It's an investment," he hissed. "An image. Someone with your 20th century mindset wouldn't understand. I understand balance sheets." My voice remained even. "And I understand that you are a bankrupt who is living off his father-in-law. Or rather was." The hotel manager approached us, concerned by the noise. "Sir, is everything all right?" I nodded to him. "Yes, thank you. My relatives were just leaving." Liam turned purple with rage. He took a step toward me, clenching his fists. "You can't just throw us out on the street. We have rights." "What rights?" For the first time in the conversation, I allowed myself a faint smile. "The right to live in my house. The right to use my money. Those weren't rights, Liam. They were privileges. And you lost them the moment you showed me the door." I stood up, looking down at them, though I was shorter. My posture, my confidence, made me taller. "And now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my lawyer. We'll be discussing the future of my assets, including the house on Ocean Drive." I deliberately used the full address, the final nail in their coffin. Their faces fell. A lawyer. Assets. It was finally dawning on them that this wasn't just a family argument. This was the end of their carefree life. "Dad, don't," Izzy whispered, grabbing Liam's arm as he was about to shout something again. "Let's go." He yanked his arm away. "This isn't over, Felix. You'll regret this." They turned and walked toward the exit. Liam strode away, radiating impotent fury. Izzy shuffled behind him, hunched over as if she had suddenly aged 10 years. I watched them go. I didn't feel victorious. I only felt a deep sadness that it had to go this far for my own daughter to see the truth. But an architect knows, sometimes, to save a building, you have to remove the rotten parts, even if they were once part of the original design. I returned to my table, took a sip of my cold coffee, and pulled out my phone to confirm my meeting with Arthur. The first phase of demolition was complete. Now it was time to lay a new foundation. The meeting with Arthur was scheduled in his office in the historic Smith Tower. Arthur wasn't just my lawyer. We had been friends for nearly 40 years, ever since we worked together on the restoration project for the Pioneer Square Historic District. He knew me inside and out, and was one of the few who had delicately hinted that my generosity toward Liam bordered on recklessness. He greeted me with a firm handshake. His office was filled with shelves of legal volumes and models of buildings he had helped save. "Felix, you look like you've shed 10 years, he remarked, pouring us coffee. Life outside the family nest doing you good. It's brought clarity, Arthur. I didn't come to complain. I came to act. I briefly laid out the events of the past week, the ultimatum, my departure, the financial blockade. He listened attentively, without interrupting, only making notes in his pad. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Well, it was predictable. Liam was always a soap bubble. Beautiful, iridescent, but empty inside. What's next? You want to evict them? Formally. By the book. So they don't have a single leg to stand on. That's simple, Arthur nodded. You're the sole owner, there's no lease agreement. They were guests. An eviction notice, 30 days to pack up. If they refuse, the sheriff will handle it. But I think we have something more interesting. He turned to his computer and opened a file. Remember you asked me 3 months ago to run a check on your house? Just for your peace of mind. I nodded. I had felt a vague anxiety back then, a sixth sense, and had asked Arthur to verify the property's title was clean. Well, Arthur continued, turning the monitor toward me. About 4 months ago, an application was submitted for a home equity line of credit against your house. For $250,000. The blood drained from my face. What? But I didn't apply for anything. Exactly. The application was submitted by Liam Conway. He presented the bank with a package of documents, including a supposedly notarized power of attorney from you, and even a preliminary gift letter that was to take effect in a year. I stared at the scanned documents on the screen. My signature, crudely but skillfully forged. The seal of a notary, I didn't know. This wasn't just a plan for a remodel. This was a plan to steal my home, my primary asset, Martha's legacy. The bank denied him, Arthur said. Fortunately, the loan officer was a meticulous guy and decided to make a courtesy call to me, as your legal representative. Naturally, I told him it was all a forgery. We buried the issue to avoid a family scandal, but I kept copies of everything. I was hoping it would scare him off. I was silent, processing the information. The humiliation I had felt on the day of the ultimatum paled in comparison to this icy realization. This wasn't the impulsive act of a spoiled son-in-law. It was a cold, calculated plan. He was going to steal everything from me. What about his startup? I asked in a hollow voice. Arthur opened another folder. And here's the cherry on top. I did some digging. His company, Innovate Future Labs, is registered as an LLC with $100 in capital. It has no patents, no contracts, no employees other than Liam himself. What it does have is significant debt. He took out loans for business development from private investors, showing them pictures of your house and hinting at an imminent large collateral-backed loan. Your $100,000 was just the seed money to create an illusion. I stood up and walked to the window. Seattle went about its day, cars flowing over the viaduct, a ferry slowly pulling away from the pier. And in my small universe, a bomb had just detonated. Liam wasn't just living off me. He was using me and my property as bait to defraud other people. My daughter was living with a con man. Arthur, what can we do with this? I asked, without turning around. Anything you want, his voice was firm. We can file a police report for fraud. Attempted grand larceny, forgery. This is a criminal matter, Felix. He could face real prison time. I was silent for a long time. Send my daughter's husband to prison? Despite everything he had done, the thought of it was painful. Painful for Izzy. For a start, I finally said, turning back to him, let's use this as leverage. Prepare the formal eviction notice and attach copies of these documents to it. Let them know that we know. And then, we'll see how they react. Arthur nodded. A wise decision. Sometimes the threat of an avalanche is more effective than the avalanche itself. I left his office a completely different man. The pain and hurt were gone, replaced by a cold, steely rage. This was no longer about disrespect. This was a war for my legacy, for my honor, and perhaps for my daughter's soul. And as an experienced architect, I knew that to win such a war, you must strike at the enemy's most vulnerable structural points. And Liam's greatest vulnerability was his reputation. I was about to demolish it. The following week was dedicated to a strategic offensive on the social front. I knew that in our world, especially in the tight-knit circle of Seattle's architects, designers, and developers, reputation is everything. And Liam had built his fragile empire on exactly that, on the image of a young, bold visionary poised to disrupt the market. It was time to pop that bubble. My first visit was a lunch with George Hammond, the head of the local chapter of the American Institute of Architects. We sat in his favorite restaurant, and I casually told him my story. I didn't complain. I stated the facts, dryly and dispassionately. The financial support, the ultimatum, my departure. And then, as if an afterthought, I mentioned Liam's plans to gut my house, the very house that had won the Hammond Prize for Best Private Residence in 2005. George's eyes widened. He was going to demolish your sonata of light and stone? That barbarian. That house is a city treasure. He called it modernization, I replied calmly. Said my vision was obsolete. George turned red. Obsolete? That kid has less taste than a concrete block. Felix, I have to mention this to the Preservation Committee. Informally, of course. I'd be grateful, George, I said, knowing that informally meant the entire architectural community would know by evening. My next stop was a major supplier of exclusive building materials, Cascadia Design Supply. Liam was a frequent visitor there, collecting free samples and telling the managers about his upcoming megaproject. I spoke with the owner, Michael Chun, whom I'd known for years. I told him the same story, adding one detail. Can you imagine, Michael? He even managed to show some contractors forged ownership documents. Good thing my lawyer caught it in time. Michael whistled. Wow. And here he was, telling me how you two, like father and son, were working on the project of the century. He asked me to open a line of credit for materials, promised to pay it off as soon as the bank approved the collateral. The bank has already denied him, Michael, and it's unlikely they ever will. Chen's eyes narrowed. Thanks for the heads up, Felix. Consider his line of credit permanently closed. In the evening, I ran into several old neighbors at the local grocery store. They had, of course, noticed I wasn't living at home and showered me with questions. I answered with a sad smile. The young ones need their space. They decided my house was too old-fashioned for their grand plans and asked me to move out. Well, to each his own. I decided it was time to live for myself. It was brilliant in its simplicity. I wasn't accusing them directly. I was positioning myself as a victim of their youthful maximalism and poor taste, which in the eyes of our conservative and respectable neighborhood was practically a crime. On Friday morning, a courier delivered the official eviction notice. Arthur had ensured it was impeccably drafted. In the envelope, besides the notice itself, were copies of Liam's loan application and his forged documents. I could picture their faces at that moment. Shock, fear, the realization that the game was over. My phone exploded 10 minutes later. First, Izzy called, her voice breaking into sobs. Dad, what is this? Eviction? Forged documents? This has to be a mistake. Liam says you framed him to destroy us. Ask Liam where he was on April 15th at 2:30 p.m., Izzy. That's precisely when he was sitting in the loan officer's office at Citibank. I have a witness. There was silence on the line. Then Liam called. His rage was almost palpable. You'll regret this, old man. You have no idea who you're messing with. I will destroy you. I'll tell everyone you've lost your mind, that you have dementia. No one will believe a senile old fool. Good luck, I said coldly. My friends George Hammond and Michael Chun are already aware of your projects. I think their opinion in this city carries a little more weight than yours. You have 30 days to vacate my house. After that, I am not responsible for your problems. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Communication had now moved to a new level, through lawyers. The information spread through the city like a wildfire. Liam, the brilliant young visionary, was transforming before everyone's eyes into that grifter who tried to scam the legendary Felix Miller. His social capital, built on lies and my money, was evaporating by the minute. I felt no triumph. I felt like a surgeon performing a complex but necessary operation. I was removing a cancerous tumor that threatened everything I held dear. And I knew that a desperate patient, given a terminal diagnosis, is capable of the most insane action. Liam was not going down without a fight. Desperation made him predictably reckless. He launched his counterattack, just as he had promised, attempting to paint me as an insane old man. On Monday, a small piece appeared in a local online publication dedicated to Seattle's social scene. In it, an anonymous source, close to the family of renowned architect Felix Miller, expressed concern over his unstable mental state. The article stated that Miller, suffering from sundowner syndrome, had become unreasonably aggressive and paranoid, leading to a rift with his daughter and son-in-law, the young and talented innovator Liam Conway, who was working on an ambitious renovation project for the family home. It was dirty, but not surprising. Liam was trying to get ahead of the story by creating an alternate reality. Then he moved to social media. On his Facebook page, he published a long post full of veiled hints and crocodile tears. He wrote about the tragedy of aging, how difficult it is to see a brilliant mind begin to fade, and about his endless love and support despite undeserved accusations. He attached several photos of us together, from Christmas, from birthdays, where we all looked like a happy family. It was a calculated blow aimed at those who didn't know the whole story. But his biggest mistake was yet to come. On Wednesday, Arthur called me. His voice was tense. "Felix, you'd better sit down. Your son-in-law has just outdone himself. He's filed a countersuit." "A countersuit?" I couldn't believe my ears. "He's trying to challenge your eviction on the grounds that he has allegedly invested significant funds and time into the house, which gives him certain property rights. He claims his intellectual contribution in the form of developing the renovation concept is valued at $500,000. I laughed. It was a laugh born of sheer absurdity. Intellectual contribution? For glossy pictures downloaded from the internet? Arthur, is he serious? More than serious. He's trying to drag out the process, turn it into a legal battle that will cost you a fortune in money and nerves. He's hoping you'll give up, that you won't want to air your dirty laundry in public. But the laundry was already out, and I had no intention of taking it back in. The professional community's reaction to Liam's antics was swift and unequivocal. Colleagues called me to express their support. George Hammond wrote a scathing column about the barbaric treatment of architectural heritage, not naming names, but everyone knew who he was talking about. Liam was barred from the clubs and events he loved to frequent. His world was shrinking. And then he took the next step. On Friday evening, as I was returning to the hotel, I saw him. He was standing on the other side of the street, just looking at me. There was nothing in his eyes but cold hatred. He didn't approach, didn't say a word. He just stood there, a dark shadow, an omen. It was a clear attempt at intimidation. I took out my phone and, without taking my eyes off him, took several pictures. Then I called the police and reported the stalking, referencing his previous threats. I didn't want an escalation, but I had to create an official record of his actions. Izzy wasn't idle either. She was calling all our mutual acquaintances, our relatives, crying, begging them to influence her father. She told them her version of the story, that I had suddenly changed, become cruel and unjust, that Liam was a victim of my senile tyranny. She was convincing in her role as a deceived daughter. Some believed her. The family was split. My cousins called me, urging me to be wiser and forgive the young. They didn't know about the forged documents, about the fraud. I didn't explain anything to them. Tom would put everything in its place. Liam and Izzy, working in tandem, were trying to isolate me, paint me as crazy in the eyes of society, and drag me into a legal swamp. They didn't understand one thing. An architect who has dealt with dishonest contractors, corrupt officials, and capricious clients for 30 years possesses incredible patience and the skill to conduct a long, grueling siege. They thought they were playing a game of blitzkrieg. I was preparing for a war of attrition, and I had the blueprints to all their weak points. Liam's counterattack fizzled out as quickly as it began. His tactics were designed for a swift impact, hoping I would fear the publicity and retreat. But he underestimated the strength of my foundation, my reputation, built over 40 years of honest work. His lawsuit for intellectual contribution was ridiculed in legal circles and dismissed by the court for lack of any basis at the preliminary hearing. Arthur presented the judge with my original blueprints, estimates, and the awards for the house, and the matter was closed. But it was the consequences of his attempted loan fraud that became the stone that triggered a real avalanche. The bank that rejected his application conducted an internal investigation and placed Liam on an interbank blacklist as an unreliable client prone to fraudulent activity. This information, though not public, spread quickly through financial channels. The private investors to whom Liam owed money for his startup grew concerned. They started calling him, demanding their money back. One of them, a man named Marcus Thorne with a reputation as a ruthless collector, apparently found my number. The call came on Tuesday morning. Mr. Miller? This is Marcus Thorne. I understand you're Liam Conway's father-in-law. His voice was smooth but had a metallic edge. I don't discuss my family matters over the phone, I replied. I'm not asking you to. I just want to pass a message to your son-in-law that his time is up. He promised me collateral against your house. There is no collateral. He needs to return my $50,000 by the end of the week. Otherwise, I'll begin repossession of other assets. And believe me, I will find assets to repossess. I hung up. This was just the beginning. The walls were closing in on Liam. He had lost access to credit, his reputation was destroyed, and now he was being hunted by real predators, not just bank clerks. On Thursday, the police officer I had reported the stalking to came to my hotel. Mr. Miller, I have news for you. Your son-in-law attempted to enter your property last night. The neighbors called a patrol. He was aggressive, shouting that it was his house. Given your previous report and his threats, we can issue a temporary restraining order, a court order prohibiting him from approaching you or your property. I agreed without hesitation. This was no longer a family dispute. It was a matter of my safety. On Friday morning, Liam was served with the restraining order. He could no longer come within 500 feet of me or the house. Any violation meant immediate arrest. The reaction was immediate. Izzy called me. She was hysterical. Dad, what have you done? A restraining order? You want to send him to jail? Some scary men came to our house demanding money. They made threats. Liam is desperate. He says you're killing him. Not me, Izzy. His own lies and greed are killing him. I tried to speak as calmly as possible, though my heart ached at her pain. I am protecting myself and my property. Something I should have done a long time ago. But what are we supposed to do? We have no money. We're being evicted. He's being hounded. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He's drinking, Dad. He's drinking and saying horrible things. He says that if he has nothing left to lose, he'll take you down with him. A chill ran down my spine. That was a direct threat. Izzy, you are in danger being around him. Get out of there. Come to the hotel. I'll get you a room. We'll figure something out. I can't abandon him, she screamed. He's my husband. I love him. You love a man who deceived you, who tried to steal the future from you and your children. You love a con man who is willing to resort to violence. A heavy silence, filled with her sobs, hung on the line. I realized she wasn't ready yet. She was still trapped, a prisoner of her destructive loyalty. That evening, I sat in my room looking out at the rainy city. Liam's world was collapsing, and like a sinking ship, he was pulling my daughter down with him. His lies, his debts, his aggression, it had all reached a critical point. I knew I had to give Izzy one last chance to save herself, a chance to choose between the sinking ship and a life raft. And that choice had to be hers alone, without my pressure. But time was running out. I had to arrange a meeting and put all the cards on the table. I gave her a few days to comprehend the full depth of the abyss on whose edge they were teetering. On Monday, I sent her a short text. Meet me tomorrow at 11 a.m. at Le Panier. Alone. Le Panier is a small French bakery at Pike Place Market, our favorite spot since she was a child. I chose it for a reason. I wanted the atmosphere to remind her of a time when our relationship was simple and pure. She arrived on time. She looked terrible, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, dressed in simple clothes so unlike her usual designer outfits. She sat across from me and stared silently at her cup of latte. I'm here, she said quietly. What else do you want to tell me? That I'm a fool and it's all my fault? No, I shook my head. I came to offer you a choice. A final one. I took a sip of my espresso, gathering my thoughts. Your husband is a bankrupt, a con man, and, apparently, a man prone to violence. His life in this city is over. Soon, he'll either be arrested for violating the restraining order, or his creditors will do something worse to him. That is the path he has chosen. The question is, which path will you choose? She looked up at me, her eyes full of tears and desperation. I have no choice. I'm his wife. You can always choose divorce. You can choose honesty. You can choose yourself. I leaned across the table, my voice dropping lower. I'm offering you a deal, Izzy. One chance to start over with a clean slate. But it has a price. What price? She whispered. A public confession. I want you to write an open letter. For the local architectural journal and for your Facebook page. A letter in which you tell the whole truth. About how I supported you. About the $100,000 for the startup. About my paying your bills. About the ultimatum you gave me. About Liam's attempt to steal the house. About everything. Her face turned pale. You want me to humiliate myself in front of everyone? So everyone knows what an ungrateful daughter I am. I want you to tell the truth, I corrected her. Humiliation is living a lie. Honesty is the first step toward healing. People need to hear not my version, but yours. Your remorse. It's the only way to restore your name and, perhaps, someday, our relationship. She was silent, clutching her cup of cold latte. I could see the battle raging in her head between fear, pride, and the remnants of her destructive loyalty to Liam. And what then? If I do this, what happens to the house? Her voice trembled. There it was. The ultimate question. The house. I paused, looking her directly in the eyes. I've already donated the house. I signed the final papers yesterday. It is being transferred to the Martha Miller Foundation for Young Architects. It will be converted into a residency for several talented graduates who lack the funds to start their careers. They will live and work there for free for 1 year. It was my trump card, my final move. I saw the last spark of hope for material gain die in her eyes. She understood that the house was lost to her forever, regardless of her decision. Now, her choice was not between money and pride. It was between truth and lies, between the future and the past. Even if you do everything I ask, the house will not come back to you, I added gently. I have to be sure that your decision is based not on calculation, but on a sincere desire to make things right. For 5 years, I was a walking ATM for you. I want to see if there is anything left between us besides financial dependency. She began to cry. Quietly, soundlessly, tears just rolled down her cheeks. These were not tears of manipulation. These were tears of utter brokenness. I don't know if I can, she whispered. Liam, he'll kill me. Liam will be out of your life soon, one way or another. But I can stay. As a father, not as a sponsor. I stood up, leaving a few bills on the table. I'm giving you 48 hours to think. If the letter is not published in 2 days, I will have my answer. And then I will disappear from your life forever. And that's not a threat, Izzy. It's a promise. I walked out of the bakery without looking back. I left her alone with the most important choice of her life. I had done everything I could. I had cleared the site, demolished the rotten structures, and shown her the blueprint for a new, honest future. But she had to take the first step and lay the first stone of that new foundation herself. For 2 days, I lived in a state of tense anticipation, barely letting my phone out of my sight. I couldn't sleep, rereading old books and trying to distract myself. 48 hours stretched into an eternity. I had already begun to prepare for the worst, for having to fulfill my promise and permanently erase my daughter from my life. And then, on Wednesday evening, my phone vibrated. It was a notification from Facebook. An old architect friend had tagged me in a post. I opened it with a thudding heart. It was a post from Izzy. Long, detailed, and mercilessly honest. She had titled it, An Open Letter to My Father and to All Those I Misled. She wrote everything. The numbers, the dates, the direct quotes. She spared neither herself nor Liam. She wrote about her blindness, her greed, how she allowed her husband's ambitions to destroy her family. She ended with the words, I do not ask for forgiveness, because I know I do not deserve it. I only wish to state the truth, no matter how ugly it is. My father, Felix Miller, is a man of honor and incredible generosity, and I was a daughter who did not appreciate it. I hope that someday I can prove, not with words but with actions, that I have learned this bitter lesson. Beneath the post, there were already dozens of comments, mostly words of support for me, and words of respect for her courage. The next day, the letter appeared on the website of the local architectural journal. The effect was like a bomb going off. The story was picked up by professional circles across the country. That same day, Arthur called me. Liam has disappeared, packed his things, and left in the middle of the night. His Tesla was found abandoned in a bus station parking lot. I think he's running from his creditors. Izzy has filed for divorce and filed a police report about his threats. I felt a sense of relief. Not joy, but a quiet, hard-won relief. The cycle was broken. 3 months later, the official ceremony to transfer the house to the foundation took place. Many people came, journalists, architects, city officials. I gave a short speech about Martha, about her dream of helping young talent. The foundation's first 3 residents, brilliant graduates from different parts of the country, stood beside me with tears in their eyes. They looked at the house not as a trendy mansion, but as a sanctuary, as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Izzy was there, too. She stood off to the side, not drawing attention to herself. She didn't approach me, and I was grateful to her for that. She understood that everything takes time. My new life was quiet and measured. I bought a small apartment downtown, overlooking a park. I started sketching again, taking long walks, meeting with friends. I felt free, financially and emotionally. Another 6 months passed. One evening, I received a text message. It was from Izzy. "Dad, I got a job. An assistant in a small art gallery. I'm renting a tiny studio. I've started seeing a therapist. I know forgiveness is a long way off, but maybe we could get coffee sometime?" My treat. I stared at the message for several minutes. My treat. That simple phrase meant more than all her tears and apologies. It was a symbol of her independence, a symbol of a new beginning. I smiled, for the first time in a long time, a genuine, warm smile. I typed back a reply. "That sounds nice. Tomorrow at Le Panier? 11. The response came back in a second. "I'll be there. Thank you, Dad." I set the phone aside and looked out the window. The city was lighting up. Somewhere out there, among those lights, my daughter was taking her first, uncertain steps into an adult, responsible life. And I was willing to wait. Architects know how to wait. We know that the strongest and most beautiful buildings are not built quickly. They are built on an honest foundation, brick by brick. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.